Longhorn Nation, Sooner fans, welcome to episode 83 of the Bevo Podcast, the only podcast exclusively dedicated to covering the greatest rivalry in college football, University of Oklahoma and the University of Texas. I'm here with my man, Kevin Miller. I am John Whitson. Kevin, I just got done watching a movie on the Amazon Prime. It's called A Million Miles Away. Stars Michael Pena. You know who Michael Pena is?
I do, yeah. Good actor.
Fantastic actor. And basically, he is the child of migrant workers, and he is inspired to want to be an astronaut. He overcomes multiple hurdles in his life. He works his ass off. His wife works her ass off. They've got 4 kids. His cousin dies. You name it. It's every single possible thing that can go wrong. But you know what? At the end, he perseveres, Kevin. He perseveres, and he becomes an astronaut. And he flies to space. And he's the only migrant worker to travel to space, which is kind of weird when you think about this. The idea of migrant workers, now it's like the true migrant, right? He migrated to space. It's an amazing story. I encourage everybody to check you out. And yet I'm sitting there wondering why this guy has to face as many challenges as he does, and yet he comes out on the other end, And I think to myself, I know why I feel the way I feel right now. It's not jealousy. It's not regret. It's the fact that I have an offensive coordinator for my college football team that refuses to run his running back right up the middle, and instead he runs sweeps to wide receivers, and I got so sick of seeing it, and he's the reason we lost 38-33 at Kansas. It's a freaking joke. It's our offensive coordinator. He's the only reason we lost. Everything else was perfect in that game, and I'm pissed. I'm pissed off. And Michael Pena, a million miles away, couldn't even make me feel better, Kevin. He couldn't even make me feel better because we lost to freaking Kansas. Kevin, the University of Oklahoma ranked 6th in the country, 7-0 on the verge of a playoff spot, loses to freaking Kansas because our offensive coordinator sucks, Kevin. He's terrible. He's the worst play caller in the history of Oklahoma football. And I cannot stand the product that he puts out on the field every week. I'm pissed. I don't know if I can handle it. You might have to do the rest of the show because it has been a long weekend, Kevin. A long freaking weekend of dealing with that crap in my head. There, I said it, Kevin. I said
it. Here's the thing with Lebby, right? We thought that he had turned a corner after the Texas game.
He did not.
Right? He called some really good plays throughout the majority of the game, especially on that last drive, working the middle of the field, exposing a weakness for Texas. And yeah, from what I'm seeing from OU fans, they are not happy with this guy. It seemed like it was working with Tawee Walker, when he had 23 carries, 146 yards, running the ball. And also, what do you think was the deal with the lack of trusting Gabriel to throw the ball down the field really at any point before the last drive?
I have no freaking idea. Kevin, listen, it was not a perfect game. I digress. Lebby is not the only reason we lost, okay? However, our defense created 2 turnovers. They recovered a dropped kickoff, which that happened to each team. They recovered a dropped kickoff, but then when we dropped the kickoff, they held the team and forced them from maybe even making a field goal. And then in the fourth quarter, specifically in the fourth quarter, Billy Bowman has an interception. Ethan Downs has an interception. We're basically putting the ball in the hands of the offense to go win the game. With 2 minutes and 30 seconds left, he runs it 3 times with Javonte Barnes. And what's frustrating about that is the run game has been working with Tawee Walker. And I know he was banged up. And they're going to say, well, he was banged up. You know what, dude? They taped him up, and he came back in the game. He was the reason the run game was working. It was not Javonte Barnes. It was not Sawchuk. It sure as hell wasn't Jaleel Farouk. It was Tawee Walker. And for whatever reason, they didn't run him. And then in addition to not running him, they just completely lost faith in their quarterback and did not let him throw the ball. And it did not make any sense to me. If he is the Heisman Trophy candidate, and I think he's a pretty good quarterback. Listen, the dude ran for 14 carries for 64 yards and 3 touchdowns. He played a game. Yes, he threw a pick 6. Stuff's going to happen throughout a game. But he played a game. And to take the ball out of his hands when we can go win it on the road, I don't know. It's unforgivable.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, was it something with the weather, right? I know the weather sucked, right? Does Dylan Gabriel have below average hand size for a quarterback? I'm just trying to think of what reason you would have to not throw the ball more than you did.
I think throughout the game, the run game was so effective.
Yeah.
The run game was so effective. I mean, Tawi had 23 carries for 136 yards, 6.3 yards a carry. If you can give the ball and he's going to pick up 6 yards every time in those weather conditions, I'm fine with running the ball. But nothing's happening. We got 3 downs to go win the game. 3 downs to go win the game. And you're running Javonte Barnes? It just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, the kid did not have a great game. I think he had 3 carries. He averaged 3 yards a carry. Sawchuk had 6 for 19, and Farouk had 5 for 18, averaging 3.6 yards a carry. It was nothing. It didn't even make sense.
I'm surprised they didn't call a Gabriel keeper in that situation too. The way he had been running the ball.
I think they did they on second down.
Okay.
Second or third down they might have, but it was just really, really fun. I mean, and then Brent Venables. I didn't even think about it at the time, but when he talked about it in his press conference, I think he was right. We get him to 4th down and 10 and have a chance to end the game. And he has 2 timeouts available, and he doesn't call a timeout on 4th down to organize the defense, set the defense up, get him in a good spot. I didn't think about it during the game. I know what he was thinking is probably we need to hold on to these timeouts. But we had one, and in effect, we had one play to go ahead and win the game right there. So it was just a really frustrating game all around. I told you about this before it happened. And yes, everybody's going to say, yeah, John, but you picked OU to cover. I did pick OU to cover. But at the beginning of the year, I also said this was the one game I was really, really concerned about was Kansas on the road. And then when the weather hit, I was even more concerned about it. But one out of the 2 things materialized that I thought gave us a chance to win, which was Tawi Walker. The other being the kicking game, which we trust our kicker so little that he didn't even attempt a kick. So look, we had 3 turnovers. They had 3 turnovers, even. But on the defensive side, we allowed 3 drives over 75 yards, 4 over 65 yards. I'm not saying the defense played a perfect game, but they gave us an opportunity to win it in the 4th quarter. Our offensive coordinator kept us from going out and taking it. And it's frustrating. And I'm really, really frustrated right now.
Any concerns about the defense from as far as the base go? I know you guys are really good at forcing turnovers and getting tackles for loss, but I don't think Brent's going to be happy about 225 yards rushing to Kansas.
Well, I'm concerned about Danny Stutzman. I don't know what his status is. He did not go back in the game after getting hurt in the 3rd quarter. We're not going to have Reggie Pearson, I don't think, right, for the first half of the Oklahoma State game. Bowen only played 5 snaps. McCullough looked very good. I thought our defensive line looked okay. Here's the thing with Kansas is they give you so many looks, multiple looks.
They give you a ton of them. Yeah.
So much motion but here's the reality, dude. Gordon, or not it's not Gordon. Yeah, Gordon, right?
Oh, Neil. You talking about Kansas running back?
For Oklahoma State.
Oh, Ollie Gordon. Oh, yeah.
This is who we have to go face. The dude only ran 25 carries for 271 yards and 2 touchdowns. So we better get the running game figured out.
Yeah.
Right? We better get the running game figured out. I don't know, man. It was a weird game. I don't know what to think. Your Texas Longhorns, on a positive note, despite having Quinn Ewers on the bench, they looked really good, dude. I thought defensively, Jalen Ford came back from the dead and had over 10 or 11 tackles.
11 tackles.
All over the field. Devondre Sweat was just getting in the backfield, it seemed like, on every single play. And what were your thoughts on Malik Murphy?
He did pretty much what I expected him to do. He's 16 to 25, 170 yards, 2 touchdowns. he did have the interception, right? And he did lose a fumble. I think both of those just come down to the inexperience that he has, right? He just hasn't played a lot. I thought overall he threw the ball well. He was pretty accurate. There's just some things he's going to have to learn with experience from actually being on the field, like that fumble. It's a play action. They kind of blow it up, and he doesn't get rid of it or just take the sack. He's trying to get the ball out quickly, gets hit, fumbles a football. But man, the defense was so good. Neither one of those turnovers hurt us. So yeah, I was impressed with the team. I thought it was a good team victory, and I like what I like about this team is that they don't have to score 80. They have to score 45 points to win. They'll have days where they do score like that, and the defense is not as great, but they can still score enough points. They have games where the offense isn't great, but the defense has been good. They've had games where the special teams has been good. So what I like about them is they can win in multiple different ways. So that's what's been good about them so far this year.
My takeaway was that I don't think Malik is going to be threatening Quinn for the starting job, at least off of that performance, but he still looked very comfortable. I got the feeling he looked comfortable. Even that interception, I get it, and it was a bad one. He didn't look like the job was too big for him or anything like that. And man, he's got an arm. And if he can start dialing that arm up, if Sark wants to dial that arm up, but I tell you, the key to victory was Jonathan Brooks. That guy,
he continues to impress. He's just been outstanding. And we knew that he was good, but I don't think any of us thought he was this good to be one of the best running backs in the country in his first year as a starter.
Did he go over 140 yards? Am I remembering that right?
He 140 total yards. I think he had 98 yards rushing on 16 carries. Let me pull it up real quick. Yeah, he was 16 carries for 98 yards, so 6.1 yards a pop with a touchdown. And then he had 4 catches for 40 yards. So right around 140 total yards.
No, he looked really good. Xavier Worthy with the 74-yard punt return. Terrence Brooks with an interception. Murphy with that 30-yard pass to A.D. Mitchell was pretty legit. Taffy had another 45-yard interception return. You kind of were big play. You were big play Texas, I thought, on Saturday.
Yeah.
And that was interesting to see. And then again, you just really you never gave BYU a chance. They just never had a chance.
Yeah. We'll get into it. I know we'll have a deeper dive later on in the show, but there are a couple of things I'm concerned about, and some of the same things that we've seen all season, but we'll come back to it.
Getting stopped on 4th down in the red zone, is that among one of them?
Absolutely. That is the main one. And it's been all season, and it doesn't matter who we're playing. I know you guys have to go line stand against us, but man, we can't punch it in against Wyoming. We can't punch it in against Rice. We can't punch it in against anybody. So it's something that we're gonna have to fix for when we're in a close game when those points actually matter. They hurt us against OU, and it could hurt us against some of these teams we have coming up for the rest of the season.
Well, here's the reality, right? Is this upcoming week is the hardest test we've each had since we played each other. Okay?
Absolutely.
Kansas State rolled off a 41-0 burger against Houston, who y'all were in a one-score game with.
One-possession game, absolutely.
And Oklahoma State beat a Cincinnati team that we struggled against 45-13 with the aforementioned Ollie Gordon rushing for 271 yards and 2 touchdowns. This is what we have to go against. Real quick update before we break down the rest of the top 25. You have a Quinn Ewers update for us.
All I've heard is he's still week to week, right? I personally don't expect to see him against Kansas State. I would love to, but I don't expect to see it. So it looks like it'll be Malik Murphy again against K-State. It's going to be a tough game.
Dude, you've got some things to figure out against them. It looks like they have figured some things out, and they are rolling right now. And they are coming down to Austin next week with a lot of confidence. And Oklahoma State is licking their chops to play us. They see a down, defeated, inept offense run by an inept offensive play caller with probably no hope at ever scoring another point again ever. And they couldn't be happier that this is what's coming up to Stillwater next week. So it's going to be a lot. But first, let's break down what happened this week, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the games yesterday. Georgia, Florida, I think everybody wanted a good game. We want to see Georgia tested. It's just, I don't know when it's going to happen, man. They rolled Florida 43-20.
Yeah,
Ohio
we'll see
State.
what Missouri can do against them this week. But man,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. They're so good at taking away what you do best.
And don't they host Missouri?
Yeah, it's in Athens.
Yeah.
Tough
So
ask for Missouri to go up there and get a win.
not a huge ask, but they're 7-1. Let's just see where it lays. But Florida, I don't know. They weren't ready. Ohio State beat Wisconsin. Marvin Harrison Jr. is not talked about enough in the Heisman race, but to me, he is really, really close to being the best college football player in the country.
I completely agree. He can do it all, man. He has great size, great speed, great hands. He's tough. He does it all, man.
He's single-handedly carrying the Ohio State offense right now.
Correct, yeah, because this is not the typical Ryan Day offense we see with just them taking deep shots down the field, guys running wide open. They've got talented receivers out there, but the offense is not clicking in the same way that it has the past few years. But yeah, Harrison is carrying them. But it was good to see Travion Henderson out there. He is a big-time impact player when he's healthy, and he ran the ball really well against Wisconsin. So if they have him out there, they're just a totally different team.
Washington, Stanford. I think you agreed with me that we thought Washington was going to come in and roll. This was a very close game, even closer than the score predicted here.
Yeah, for sure.
Stanford had a last minute and a half, 2-minute drive, and they went for it on 4th down and really dialed up a nifty little play. Had a wide receiver wide open off in the flat. They did kind of a little flea flicker to a running back, and he flicked it out. Wasn't a great pass, but very, very catchable. And he dropped it, and Washington survives. Penix goes for 369 yards, 4 touchdowns, and interception. Surprised
He did
to
have
see
a
them.
fumble too. That.
Oh, did he?
It was kind of back to back. Yeah, it was kind of on back to back possessions, and the second half too.
Were you surprised to see Washington struggle so much against Stanford? And
yeah, a little bit. We still haven't seen them at their best since the Oregon game, right? It's like they've had two kind of
like Oklahoma. It's kind of like Oklahoma, but except they got out with a win and we didn't.
Yeah.
In addition to other schools in the state of Utah that had bad days, Oregon just blew the doors off of Utah 35-6. Same exact score. Utah as a state scored 12 total points. Utah's reign of big Pac-12 champion likely comes to an end with that loss. I will say this. Did you happen to see the Pat McAfee show on Friday?
I did not.
Kyle Whittingham rolled up to the Pat McAfee show. They have it there on campus in the same spot game day is.
Yeah.
He rolled up into the set with a sleeveless shirt on a Harley.
Oh.
And he pulled it off. He looked great. He looked really, really good. It didn't back it up against Oregon, but he looked really, really good. And
well, man, I think Oregon is a really good football team this year. I mean, I know they lost that game to Washington. That game could have gone either way. I like Oregon to potentially make the college football playoff. I think they're an outstanding team. So. I like their offense and their defense.
I think so. Penn State beats Indiana 33-24. Arizona upsets Oregon State 27-24. This is number 11 in the country going down. Arizona's kind of putting a weird little year together, right?
They've got a good resume. They've beaten some good teams.
Now, did Arizona beat Oklahoma State? No, they didn't, right? Oklahoma State beat them, didn't they? Or did they beat Arizona State? They beat Arizona State. Never mind.
Yeah, they beat Arizona State. But Arizona, they have beaten – hold on. I'm pulling it up real quick. 1 second. That offense that they have is dynamic. It's kind of like Washington, where they've got some really talented receivers. This kid, Jacob Cowan, who's a transfer from UTEP. Texas was trying to get him. He went to Arizona because he had a child there. But he's been great for them. And they got the McMillan kid, who was actually a 5-star receiver. Somehow Arizona got him. And he's been great. So, yeah, that offense is good, and they're able to put up a lot of points. But Arizona they beat Washington State.
Okay. That was a ranked team.
That was a ranked team. Yeah, They lost in overtime to USC. They lost by Washington by a touchdown. They beat Stanford, beat UTEP, so and they beat.
So
that's it.
their
So
only two losses are SC and Washington.
yes,
Wow, that's pretty good.
mm-hmm.
That's not bad. They should be ranked then, probably, right? When the
You would
polls
think
come
so,
out.
right? Well, the polls came out earlier. I don't remember seeing them in there, but if they're outside the top 25, they shouldn't be far out.
Ole Miss beat Vanderbilt 33-7. Ole Miss is sitting at 7-1. Their only losses to
Bama.
Bama, right?
Yeah, they lost to Bama.
And they beat LSU, correct?
Yes. It was a crazy shootout type game.
So what happens when LSU beats Bama? They'll all have one loss?
Yeah, I don't know how that tiebreaker is going to work. That'll be interesting. So
That's
you think
gonna be
LSU beats Bama?
I think their offense is pretty darn good. I think the last time
It's
they played an offense that good, it was against Texas in
dynamic.
Tuscaloosa.
Dynamic offense for sure.
Notre Dame rolled Pitt 58-7. Is their offense waking up, or is Pitt that bad?
Probably a little bit of both. I know Hartman did have a couple of turnovers, but yeah, man, I think Notre Dame's a good football team. I like their defense, and they're at least with Hartman, they're able to make some big plays more than they have in the last few years.
We picked this game, Louisville and Duke. We thought it might hinge on whether Riley Leonard plays or doesn't. He did not play. He did play, and it did not matter.
Not at all.
Louisville shuts Duke out 23-0. Ended up being a win for both of us. Air Force beat Colorado State. Tennessee beat Kentucky 33-27. Kentucky had a lot of promise at the beginning of the year, and it has gone away. Tulane beat Rice. UCLA beat Colorado. What do you think about the Shiloh Sanders hit? I did not think that was targeting. I think that is what is
not at all
football, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it was just a shoulder to the chest. I mean, I thought it was a clean hit. Yeah, and see that kid get ejected off of that, man, it was disappointing.
I see more violent hits than that in 12-year-old girls soccer every weekend. Like, and I'm not joking. They literally,
they go after each other. Yeah, Richard Sherman was saying, like, either you do that or you go and hit a player low, which could cause a devastating leg injury, a knee or an ankle injury, right?
Yeah.
So what's he supposed to do?
I think we're sending.
It was a very clean hit. I thought it was a perfectly timed physical play.
That play is definitely an overcorrection, because if you can't do that, then we're starting to wonder if we're even playing football. Like that.
Correct. And you know me, man, I'm all about protecting players. I just didn't think it was a hit that warranted a targeting.
Well, when it first came out, the targeting and leading with the head, the old school, or at least guys like me that grew up watching football, never really playing. It's always funny how the guys that don't play are the ones that talk about hits being okay. We're like, oh, they're taking away the game. They're taking away.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, you know what? Maybe we're keeping guys from dying. Like, maybe this is probably the right decision to make. And it has been. Injuries are down, concussions are down, safety's down. Safety's up. It's I think they've made the right moves, but in this case, that's just an overreaction.
Yeah, it's a bad call.
That's a bad call.
Man, we talked about this. This is just talking about Colorado, period. Man, Shedeur Sanders, he is such a tough dude, but man, he gets hit a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it was midway through the fourth quarter, and he'd already gotten hit 17 times. I just don't know how he's going to finish the season. He gets hit, like I said, he is tough as nails, man. He's a competitor. Love that kid, but they cannot protect him. And with UCLA having that edge rusher, we talked about him for weeks now. Latu, he was dynamic. They had no chance to protect Shedeur, especially with that kid out there. He had a great performance.
Insult to injury, USC beats Cal by 1 point after coming back from, I think, a double-digit loss in the fourth quarter. Caleb Williams goes for 369 yards and 2 touchdowns. If Lincoln Riley wanted to send a message about caring about the trajectory of the program, he would fire Alex Grinch after a 49-point output by Cal.
Correct. He would. Correct. Yeah. I don't know what the deal is, man. There's no improvement at all defensively. They were a 2-point conversion away from losing to Cal, right? And their season would have just completely been off the rails if they would not have somehow stopped that 2-point conversion. They make Cal's players look like All-Americans right? I'm not too familiar with this Cal team. I
Well,
know
because
they
they're
have
not.
that
You know
running
why?
back.
Because they're not any good. That's why you're not too
Correct.
familiar with them.
They have this running back, and I don't know, man. He was busting out just big run after big run. He was shot out of a cannon. This dude was dynamic. They were just hitting him through the air, running the ball. They could do whatever they want.
Who
And
does who does
again,
S, who does SC have next weekend?
well, I think they have Washington.
Well, Washington. I don't want to say they're reeling, but they are vulnerable right
Yeah,
now.
it's they've got here are the last 3 games. It's a gauntlet, man. They've got Washington. It's this one. It's in Los Angeles at the Coliseum. Next week they go to Eugene to play Oregon, and then they play UCLA also at the Coliseum. It's just a rough way to end the season, and easily can go 0-3.
James Madison beats Old Dominion. K-State, we mentioned this. This is your opponent next week, 41-0. You saw Houston. You know they're not that bad of a football team. They're not great. I'm not trying to paint a picture but they're not that bad to roll
Yeah.
41-0. West
Here's
Virginia
the
beats
thing, man.
UCF.
Real quick.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go
This
ahead.
was last week was Houston's Super Bowl.
You might be right.
Right.
You might be right.
Holgorsen all week was saying, everybody was telling them, hey, man, you can lose all of them. Just beat Texas. Just beat Texas. And they pulled out everything they could to beat Texas. Didn't do it. And you saw it, man. They had nothing left in the tank to lose 41-0 at home to K-State.
I agree with you, okay, but still, K-State is rolling.
They really are. And ever since they've got that Avery Johnson kid in, they're rotating their quarterbacks with him and, of course, Will Howard, who's been there. We all know him, but this Avery Johnson kid is pretty dynamic running the football. So we'll see. I'm curious to see how Texas tries to defend them.
Iowa State beat Baylor 30-18, and then, of course, Oklahoma State beat Cincinnati 45-13.
Iowa State's been looking pretty good lately, by the way.
Yeah. No, it's frustrating as an Oklahoma fan because I feel like teams in the Big 12 are ascending. Now, are they ascending because they're playing each other? Maybe.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like we are improving as a team since the Texas game, right? We've had 4 weeks. This is 3 weeks since the Texas game. And I feel like we peaked at Texas and we're on the downhill slide, which is making me nervous. Number of injuries are going to impact. We'll talk about Oklahoma. Hold on. So our pick'em wins, we both had Georgia, we both had Oregon, we both had Louisville, we both had Oklahoma to cover. That was a loss, and we both had Texas to not to cover. We had BYU to cover actually. The 17.
We did. We both did. That was a loss too.
23-20-2 for me. You still are very healthy at 27-16-2. However, this is the second time in as many weeks where we both let OU and Texas cause us to go 3-2. Are we too close to these schools when we're picking this? Do you think that has something to do with it?
Well, I mean, maybe, but I mean, I picked Texas to not cover. So it's not like I was an emotional, hey, we're going to win by 40. So,
Yeah.
I mean, now you usually pick OU to cover every time.
Well, but they've been covering every time, right? I mean, up till last week, they've covered every week. So I don't know. It's just it's a weird deal. All right. This is the obligatory time to mention our sponsor. I'll tell you who our sponsor is not happy with. They're not happy with Jeff Lebby. Brown O'Haver does not think Jeff Lebby knows what he's doing when he calls plays. If he did, he'd give the ball to Tawee Walker just about every time down the field. And when that didn't work, he might let his Heisman Trophy candidate quarterback throw the ball. But if you've suffered a loss as disastrous as one to Kansas and Lawrence for the first time in 17 or 18 years, you're in the company of people that usually suffer one large loss in their life, because that's the average loss that somebody's going to suffer is one large loss in their life. Brown O'Haver handles 40 to 50 large losses a month. So if you've had an insurance loss to your home, your business, from fire, wind, theft, tornado, you want to give Brown O'Haver a call at 405-735-5510. We adjust insurance claims for you, not the insurance company, to get you more money and get you that more money more quickly. So again, if you've suffered a horrendous, terrible, devastating loss and it's all Jeff Lebby's fault, you want to call Brown O'Haver at 405-735-5510. Kevin, am I being too hard on Jeff Lebby? Is it not all on him? Is there other factors that contributed to us losing?
Yeah,
Or
there were. There are other factors, man. I mean, it's always easy to blame him, right? And look, he was not perfect, right? He called some plays that were a little bit confusing, some of the personnel stuff. But no, I thought there was something. I thought you gave up too many rushing yards. And you can't let the quarterback get loose for a 38-yard touchdown like that.
Yeah, we held Neal, who by the way is just a fantastic runner. We held him to 112 yards. And we held Highshaw to 51 yards. Now they both had combined 3 touchdowns. So we didn't lock them down by any means, but they didn't
They didn't go nuts.
They didn't go nuts. Okay. The real killer, as far as the run game goes, was that one following the fumble where Bean runs the 38-yard run for the touchdown. Yeah. I mean, nobody was there. It was a terrible call defensively. He was running in the wide open, and that was frustrating. So that really, I think, skews our running numbers a little bit. However, I still go back, and speaking of defensively, I still go back to they had 6 scoring drives, 3 over 75 yards. If you add the 4th one in, it was 4 over 65 yards. Those are long, sustained drives, right? Where that means there are opportunities for us to make stops, and we didn't make stops. Now, is that because we didn't have Bowen? Is that because we didn't have Stutzman in the second half of the game? I don't know. I actually thought McKenzie and Kip Lewis, I thought they played pretty good from what I saw. They were athletic. Yeah. They were flying to the ball. It's just there were some uncharacteristic breakdowns in the secondary that really got us. Is their tight end, I think, was catching some balls in the flat. They got us on that play a couple of times. And then, of course, the one on 4th down, I mean,
he's wide open there. And then he breaks the tackle and able to get a lot more yards.
Exactly. So I agree. Defensively was not perfect. However, I'm going to come back to the fact that when your defense gives you 2 interceptions in the 4th quarter and gives you plus field position, and you had a lead at both times. Keep in mind, we had the lead during both interceptions, that we had a chance to go ahead and put the game away. We just didn't take advantage of it, Kevin. And that's what good teams need to do, and that's what Oklahoma didn't do.
No, I completely agree. The game was there for you to be won, right? And you just didn't get it done in the end. I thought Neal, like I said, you guys did a pretty decent job on Neal. I thought Kansas did a really good job of sticking with their running game, though. 41 carries between Neal, Bean, and Highshaw. Highshaw was physical. I thought you guys did corral him pretty good, but he was able to get a couple of touchdowns. Like you said, you let Bean get loose on that 38-yard touchdown. He had a couple of other decent runs, too. But if you look at it, though, right, Bean was not even 50%.
No.
From a completion, with 15 of 32 for 218 yards. And no touchdown passes, right? So it's just one of those things. You just didn't take care of the little things, right? Just little minute details, and those are the ones that'll get you beat.
So I saw a tweet from George Stoya, who is an Oklahoma, sports guy. Yeah, beat writer, whatever the case may be. And he made the comment that he felt like the defense was trying to be too perfect, almost like they were being overcoached. Do you agree with that take?
I've never really seen it like that, but I know that you guys run really hard, and sometimes you guys overrun plays. It kind of leaves you open for misdirections, right? I think you coach to fly to the football, and sometimes that aggression can be a little bit over-aggressive, and you can get beat on certain misdirection plays, especially with some of the stuff like Kansas runs, especially on the Jason Bean touchdown. It's a good example of that, right?
Yeah, we all crashed. You
start, everybody goes that way, and then he goes that way, and there's nobody in sight. Key Lawrence was the only guy who had a chance, and he was already too far out of position because Bean can't run. We know that. So that's what I see from you guys. Sometimes it can be a little over-aggressive.
Yeah, I don't know if it's overcoaching. I think if you're looking for excuses, when you don't have Gentry Williams, one of your corners, when you don't have Peyton Bowen, one of your pretty impactful safeties playing. I think that has a bigger effect. And then you lost Pearson. What point in the game did we lose Pearson? Fourth quarter?
I think so. It was a late third or early fourth. But
But
yeah,
you
you had
lost.
some guys out there. I'm just like, I'm not familiar with some of these
Yeah,
guys.
and so I think if you're looking for excuse making, I think it falls potentially more on the personnel. As far as overcoaching goes, I think that you could make the argument that Brent should have called a timeout on that fourth down play, which would have been the appropriate amount of coaching. He should have called a
Yeah, if you
timeout.
felt like guys were confused, I don't know. Like the guys look confused before the snap. I didn't notice that, but I mean, obviously he knows his team better than I do.
Yeah. Other than that, though, I thought the defense, again, they stop them after that muffed kickoff. They stop them and force a missed field goal. The two interceptions. I don't know. I just think that, again, we've counted on, I guess it's one of those deals. If you're going to play complementary football, right? We've counted on the defense so much this year that it was time for the offense to kind of maybe carry. But I don't know that the conditions were going to allow that. Again, they only let Dylan Gabriel throw it 19 times, but he was 14 for 19, which isn't all that bad. Did have the bad interception. I thought Brock Heward's breakdown of that interception was really interesting because he showed where he took a couple extra steps in that 3-step drop and gave the corner time to read that. And so I really appreciated what he said there, because I do. It's similar to what you talk about with Quinn, where he's off balance and not on schedule, and that's how that play felt. Which DG doesn't do that very much, but he did. Clearly, that hurt us and got us behind the chains. But then the offense responds and scored 21 straight points. It was just, the second half was just weird. Once we had all of the momentum coming out of halftime, and we just really couldn't capitalize on it. Tawi Walker had a hell of a game. I know he was banged up, but I really wish they'd have stuck with him, especially on that last drive.
Yeah, you definitely miss him out there. He looked good, coming back off the suspension, right? He looked eager. He looked up for a fight. And yeah, he was great. And again, once you guys went down 14-0, I didn't think it was a huge deal, right? Especially as long as you guys went back out and scored on the next drive, which you did.
Yeah.
At that point, you guys just took over the game. I'm curious to know what you thought. Do you think the lightning delay affected anything at all?
No,
Or
we came in and scored. We came in and scored right off the gate, and then
I thought so too.
that's when we had the kickoff, and then they dropped it. If anything, it messed with Kansas. No,
Yeah.
it sucked. It was an hour long. It was, obviously it was. I didn't love it, but I just it's interesting to me though. I'm giving Lebby a ton of crap, and I think a lot of it's deserved. Some of those, he had a 2-point conversion play where he ran Gavin Freeman to the short side, which I just thought was so stupid. And he did that 2 or 3 times. That forward pass, kind of that forward sweep.
Yeah, a little jet sweep or pop pass.
But it was always to the short side with your smallest player, which just never made sense to me. I didn't get it. But hold on real quick.
Seen him. Oh, go ahead.
Well, my question, and then I don't want to interrupt you, but my question is, was Tawi still in the doghouse when they didn't start him and played Gavin Sawchuk? And then when Gavin Sawchuk didn't do too hot and they put in Farouk? I mean, Tawi didn't get in until the third. I don't think he got in until the third drive. You think he was still in the doghouse?
Maybe they pushed him down the depth chart a little bit, or maybe they just like what they saw out of Sawchuk last week. I think we all thought that you had unlocked something with him in the fourth quarter of the Central Florida game. So maybe they just wanted to go with the hot hand, right? Maybe just like, hey, you got passed up this week. But no, man, it's quite clear that Tawi Walker's the guy.
Tawi Walker's the guy. I know his ankle got banged up. Hopefully he's okay, because we're going to need him at Stillwater. I like what he did. Defensively, we need our guys back, especially Stutzman in defending the run. I think is going to be really pivotal that we have him back. Although I don't think our linebackers were the reason we lost the game. I thought they played very well in replacement of Stutzman. I don't know. It was just a really, really frustrating game. It reminded me a lot of games like last year. I kind of had that deja vu feeling of just like little things that were in our control that we didn't either execute or decide to do. And that's kind of how it felt. which makes me think it's coaching. I don't know. I don't want to be an overreactionary like I was at the beginning of the episode, but it just felt a lot like last year, and it didn't feel good.
Yeah, and I thought that it was some of the play calling. Yeah, just never really. You kind of took yourselves out of a rhythm, right? You get into a rhythm, and then it would just be something that it's like, wow, why did we do that? You know, and I see the same thing from Sark at times. Just like you call these some plays that just take you out of your rhythm completely, and it can be hard to do that and sustain drive, especially when you're playing on the road. It's an interesting environment. The weather was horrible.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
terrible.
man. And again, I think really this game shows just how it's almost damn near impossible to go an entire season undefeated. How much luck you
Well,
have to have in addition to being a good team.
look, dude, it's so hard to admit this to yourself. Like it's easy to say it on Twitter, I think, but like in your real life, it's hard. But if somebody gave me 7-1 through 9 weeks of the season, I'm taking 7-1.
Yeah, you'd be thrilled.
I'm taking
Yeah.
7-1. I don't know whether I assume the loss probably comes to Texas, but even knowing that, I probably take 7-1. Just coming off of last
Absolutely. Yeah,
year,
for sure.
Oklahoma. We have lost games and still made the playoffs. I don't know that this is one of those teams, and I don't know that this field of teams that we're against is one of those fields where you can have one loss. But it's not. We have done it in the past where we have lost a game that we shouldn't have lost and still made the playoffs.
Yeah, none of your playoff seasons were undefeated.
I don't though,
None
Kev.
of them were.
Please, but Texas fan, talk some sense to me. You'll agree that this is not a playoff team, right?
I
I
wouldn't
don't feel
think
like they
so.
are.
But
I don't feel like they are.
no, I don't think it is. But here's the thing, right? This season is so interesting because there's just going to be so many crazy things that happen. We've been talking about this all year. Really, after week 2, it's like this is going to be a crazy year. It's going to be like an 07 type season. We're going to see top teams continue to go down. So you just got to survive and just stay in the mix as long as you can. And that's like with Texas, right? Just stay in the mix. Lose a game to OU, just keep playing and see where you end up. And I think OU has to have the same approach going forward. Clean up what you messed up the other day, right? No turnovers. Can't have 3 turnovers, expect to win on the road, right? Even if you force 3 turnovers, you give up 3 on the road, man. It's going to be really hard to win a game that way. As Texas against OU.
Well, let's ask Texas how they did against BYU. We talked about it a little bit already, but get a little deeper in here. Give us your thoughts on Malik Murphy. Give us your thoughts on Jonathan Brooks, and get us to a little bit of K-State, because I think that looms large on the horizon and could be a defining game for this season.
Yeah, I agree, man. First of all, I was proud of Malik Murphy getting his first career start. He's a guy who could have transferred after last year. You heard all the rumors, right, about teams that were offering him pretty big NIL to transfer after last season, but he stuck it out, and it was nice to see that patience get rewarded with the start. I thought Sark did a pretty good job of letting him come out and throw the ball. I think like 8 of the first 10 plays were pass plays for him. Just try to get him into a rhythm early, right? Not just run, and then it's like, 3rd 9. It's like now you got to go. Hey, go make a play. Throw your first pass here. So I thought Sark did a good job with that. No, I thought he was good. The turnovers, we talked about that a little bit earlier. Those are just teachable moments. Thankfully, the defense was good enough to where it didn't matter. But no, I like what I saw from him. I thought he had a good connection with A.D. Mitchell. And he did some good things with checking the ball down, right? Showing off his arm strength when the pressure was coming. Instead of taking a sack and get it to Jonathan Brooks out in the flat, just let him go to work.
Is A.D. Mitchell your best receiver? Is he your number one?
No. Xavier Worthy's the number 1. Yeah.
Are you
Xavier
sure?
Worthy's number 1. But, I mean, there's not much separating the two. They're different, right? I mean, Worthy's a smaller guy, right? I think he's 6'1", 170, whereas Mitchell is 6'3", 205. So they're just different types of guys. The deep ball this season has looked better with Mitchell than it has. And Mitchell gives you that tough over-the-middle threat in the red zone. We've seen him score several touchdowns on those slants. And it's just hard for DB to body him up with that size. That's the difference between X. X is great on the deep ball, but Quinn is not the best at throwing the deep ball. right? I'm curious to
Yeah.
see if we have Malik starting this week, which I do expect as of right now, if they try to unlock the deep ball to Xavier Worthy, because he's great at that. And
Man,
we've seen that for the last 3 years. So
it sure did look like Malik had plenty of arm talent there, dude. Like he had a couple flat-footed throws that had a lot of velocity on it. You know what I mean? And it just,
yeah, honestly, I
I
think he's
agree.
taking some off this week because he only threw twice, and he came in unexpectedly against Houston, but the 2 throws he had, man, he was darting them in there. I think they talked to him, hey, just kind of ease up on the power and the velocity, especially on short throws.
Yeah. Well, his touch didn't look too bad. I didn't think so. I mean,
No,
his number again, 16 to 25. He's not. If Quinn's back, he's back. I think he's your guy. But oh man, that's a pretty good upside. Here's the issue with Malik Murphy. You talked about the transfer portal. Surely he's in the transfer portal after this year, though. Correct? Like
I
surely.
have. You would think so, but you never know. I don't know what to expect after this year. We have not seen Arch at all. He has not played one snap yet. And at this point, I don't know if we do see him. So I don't know if does Malik just say, I'm probably not going to win this job, and then he hits the portal, or does he try to stay and fight for the job again?
Did you
'Cause
have
I
an
don't
opportunity?
expect Quinn Ewers to be back next year.
Y'all scored late in the fourth quarter to make it 35-6. Were you never really in a position to give Arch some run just in case something happened to Malik?
I thought that they would. He did warm up a couple of times, but it just seemed like Sark just wanted to give as many reps to Malik as possible today. He said what he said in his post game press conference is if some of those fourth downs in the red zone would have worked and they would have been up, 42-6 in the third quarter, like they could have and probably should have been, then they probably would have played Arch.
Hmm.
So yeah, like I said, man, I don't know. We've got pretty tough games coming up here for the rest of the season, right? We've got K-State, then TCU, and I know they're not good this year, but you know how it is when you're OU and when you're Texas. You play these schools, and it's the last time that they're probably going to play you for a long time. It's going to be their Super Bowl. You guys saw that last week against yesterday against Kansas. Texas sees it every week, so TCU is going to be tough. Then they got to go to Iowa State. They're getting better. And then finally, we finish at home against Texas Tech. Again, I know they haven't been good, but it's Texas Tech playing against Texas. They're going to pull out all the stops. So I don't know, man. I don't know if we see Arch at all this season.
What do you think about your defense? Like I had mentioned earlier, I thought Jalen Ford played really well, really well. Probably the best he's played since before the Texas game. And then, of course, you had Brooks and Taffy with interceptions in the secondary. Um, is that a
No,
function
I
of
thought we were
was it
good.
a function of Texas playing better or BYU just being terrible
I
offensively?
think it's a little bit of both, right? But I mean, we've seen teams that aren't that great be able to make some plays against the Texas defense, right? We saw Houston. I don't think Houston is a great team at all, right? And they were able to really exploit that middle of the field that OU was able to exploit the game before that. But no, I thought we did a good job of getting pressure on Slovis. We never let him really get comfortable. I thought the coverage was tight. I thought the linebackers covered well, and we stopped the run well. So no, it was a really good performance, and we forced turnovers. Right, you really want to see that from your best players is going out there and getting the ball back for your offense. So no, I was impressed with what I saw defensively. The only issue I have with Texas, right, and this is a coaching thing. I think this is a scheme thing. I still don't like how our DBs play so far off coverage.
Oh, your Twitter fans don't either. Your Twitter fans can't
It's,
stand it.
it's like we had to play. It was 4th and 2, and we're playing like 8 yards off. He just runs a 2-yard hitch, and it's a first down. And I thought that really hurt us against OU in that game. If you look at Kansas yesterday, right, they were able to get that pick six. I know Dilling threw it a little bit late, but they were playing press man coverage on your receivers, right? They weren't letting them just get into their routes. They went up there and they could say, hey, we're going to live and die by how our guys can cover. And they believe in their guys. I think Texas has the personnel to be able to run the same type of scheme, but they don't. So that's one thing I'm confused about from them defensively. I think they can force more turnovers and get more interceptions that way with these corners that they have jumping on these routes. Anyway, overall, though, I'm happy with what I saw, and I'm excited for the game against K-State to see what kind of plan they put together offensively and defensively.
Have you seen Xavier Worthy run as fast as he did on that punt return before? Because that dude looks
Yes.
really, really fast.
I have seen him run that fast. He's just fast, man. Yeah. He's one of the fastest players we've ever had. He's been great to watch the last 3 years. So we all expect him to move on after this year. He's certainly one of those guys we're going to miss.
All right, dude. So you're going up against Kansas State. Your current, I had this, hold on. I had the spread pulled up for both of us. You're currently a 5.5-point favorite. Oklahoma's a 6-point favorite at Oklahoma State. I don't feel good about that at all. What do you? Let's stick with Texas though. 5.5-point favorite at home. How do you think about that line early on? How do you think about this game just a little early on? We'll break it down, of course, later this week. But what are you thinking?
Yeah, no, I think that line is actually pretty fair, right? Texas playing at home. They've won the last 6 straight against K-State. K-State used to be our kryptonite, especially throughout most of the late 2000s and into the mid 2010s. But after we got Tom Herman, he never lost a game to K-State, and neither has Sark so far. So we're able to play well against them. This 2-quarterback system that they use now has me a little bit concerned. If Avery Johnson gets loose, he can take it to the house, running the football. And Will Howard, if he gets loose running the ball, he can go for a long run as well.
So yeah, you mentioned that, and that's what I wanted to ask you about. Was the defense that you played, which I did think it looked really, really good though, but was it a function of the fact that you had Slovis at quarterback, who is not a dual threat, and for the last 2 weeks you had to play Dylan Gabriel at Oklahoma, and then the kid at Houston,
Yeah, Donovan Smith,
both who can run, and your linebackers were forced to kind of press up. I mean, are you sensing a reversion back to what we saw against Oklahoma and Houston?
I certainly hope not. But if I'm Chris Kleiman and his staff, I'm certainly looking to exploit that, the quarterback run game, and then work in the middle of the field on those crossing routes, because so far this season we have not shown the ability to stop them. At least against Oklahoma and against Houston, we haven't been able to stop them at all. So that's exactly what I would be looking to do. My thing, though, from Texas offensively, I just want to see Kansas State stop our running game, because that's what's the last few years against them. We've just been able to run at will with Bijan and Roshan, and now Jonathan Brooks. I mean, he's having a better statistical season up to this point than Bijan did last year.
Well, that's because he's getting the ball.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing: he has fewer carries than Bijan did at this point.
Does he really?
He has fewer carries and more yards.
Okay.
So yeah, I think Bijan. Now again, we're better up front.
Well, he looks. Listen, dude, he looks really good. I think he's going to be a problem for Oklahoma for at least the next 2 years. He's a really nice player.
He is draft eligible, by the way. This is actually his 3rd year on campus. I'm not saying he goes, but he is a running back. Here's the thing, right? When you're a running back,
you got to go. Dude.
You got to go if you're hot. And I'm hearing with these draft scouts that he's the number 1 or 2 running back on the board.
Well, who else would it be? Who's it? What year's the Ohio State running back you like?
Henderson, I'm not sure. I think he's at least a junior. He's been there for a while. The issue with him is he's always hurt.
Yeah.
He's pretty dynamic. He's always hurt. Yeah, you got Blake Corum at Michigan, who's been good for a while, but he gets injured a lot too. Like so far, and again, this is his first year as a starter, but he's been very durable. Jonathan Brooks, he's been breaking tackles and he's been showing speed to run away from guys too. So I think we unleash this running game though on K-State. I think that's going to be the game plan, and try to set up a few deep shots.
Speaking of the running game, that's what Oklahoma has to be ready for against Oklahoma State. I am not scared of Alan Bowman. Not scared of anything in the passing game. I'm concerned about our ability to line up and stop the run. Now, that being said, when we know it's coming and we know who it's coming from, if we can kind of manage it, I think we're going to be okay. It still is Oklahoma State. Mike Gundy finds ways to lose this game instead of finding ways to win this game. But we've got to improve the trajectory of this team right now, because the high was 3 weeks ago and we're acting like we're still all that because we beat Texas. And you guys are And you guys are acting like you're fighting for your lives. And we're acting like, well, don't you remember when we beat Texas? And it's a bad spot to be in.
Yeah, what is
So,
it? Nick Saban called it rat poison.
well, dude, we have ingested it. We've ingested a ton of it. And I thought the UCF game was going to get. And again, listen, Kansas is not a bad team. 5-2 going into the game, now 6-2. It was at home. They've got a very good coach. They've got 2 really good running backs. The weather was totally crap. And so there was a lot of factors affecting that game. However, I do not want to close this podcast without saying we had the opportunity to win the game and we didn't do it. We lost.
That's always the worst. Sometimes you just
That's
go
the
out
worst.
and you lose. And that's what hurt me about the Red River game. It's not like if we'd have lost by 20, it's like, okay, well, they're just better. When you have a chance to win and you have the opportunity to make a stop to get off the field and you don't do it, that's
I think
that's the frustrating part.
I think there's plenty of excuses for why we didn't win, but at the end of the day, we had the opportunity to win. It was right there, and we squandered it twice, offensively and defensively. I think the offensive one was more egregious because it was 3 chances with the ball in our hands and control of the situation to go finish that game off, and we didn't do it. All right, you're gonna get me fired up again. 56 minutes.
I'm looking forward to seeing your defense play against Ollie Gordon because we've talked about him for weeks now. I told you this was a guy that I really, really wanted Texas to recruit when he was in high school, Euless Trinity in the Dallas area. And man, he's been good. He's big. He's about 6'1", 6'2".
Huge.
Looks like he's about 225 pounds. He's got speed. He's got power. He has it all, man. He's already at 1,000 yards. He's 141 carries, 1,087 yards, and 10 touchdowns, 7.7 yards a carry.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. And so Stutzman better be feeling better. McCullough did play a good game, but he better be on his game because he's going to have to be up there in some run fits. I think you got to get McKenzie and Lewis ready to go too, because I think it's going to take a team. Well, obviously it will take a team effort to stop that guy. I do feel like if we can stop him, we can stop Oklahoma State and we can go ahead and win the game. The weather is not going to be the issue. It's 2:30 in the afternoon. It's actually going to be a really nice day weather-wise. So I don't know. It's going to be the last day, the last time of Bedlam. If everything that always holds true with Bedlam holds true, they will find a way to lose. We will find a way to win. And God, I hope that's the case.
And I think it's good for you guys that it's not a night game.
I don't know. Listen, I don't tell you against Oklahoma State. I don't know that it matters.
Well, yeah, I guess I'm looking at it from a Texas point of view, man. We've had some weird games there at night when that crowd's all liquored up. But again, Gundy coaches different against Texas than he does against Oklahoma. He is just completely carefree and just calling all these crazy plays against Texas. Against OU, he seems to go into a shell.
Yeah, he puckers up. Yeah, he puckers.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
It's so interesting.
Kevin, real quick, you were at the Oklahoma City Thunder game earlier. That's why we're a little late in getting this podcast out. Can you give us a breakdown of the disastrous loss that the Thunder have, and what changes do they need to make to the roster to keep this from ever happening again? Or is Denver simply that good?
Yeah, Denver is simply that good, man. I was really impressed by Jokic. This guy just completely controls the game from the center position in ways that we've never really seen before. He's like a point center. He's at the top of the key. I mean, he's throwing these no-look passes to guys in the corner. They're cutting. They're playing some really impressive basketball. I thought the Thunder just had an off night. They didn't shoot the ball great. I think they're 41% from the field, whereas Denver was 60% from the field shooting the basketball. So yeah, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he was able to get to his spots, but the shot wasn't falling. He also got into foul trouble early. I saw some good things from Chet Holmgren. Right, I saw he beat Jokic a couple times off the dribble, was able to get to the paint and finish there. So I don't know. I think this is going to be a really good team. I think they're a definite playoff team, potentially top 4 seed in the Western Conference. So yeah, future is very bright for the Thunder.
The only thing I'll say about Jokic is, I don't get to see a lot of Denver basketball until the playoffs start. But when he stands at the top of the key with the ball in his hand, he looks like a quarterback running a 7-on-7 drill. And those guys,
a great comparison.
And those guys are just running. There is more off-ball movement, it feels like, on Denver than any team I can remember since maybe the Golden State Warriors back in like 15 and 16. Remember, those teams always had a lot of good movement when they were younger and more energetic. And so those teams always had a lot of good movement. It feels like, man, those guys are always cutting for him, always moving for him. There's always a screen or a pick, and he's just, you never know which way he's going. And they're a lot of fun to watch. They well deserved NBA championship.
And you'd have to say that they're the favorite to win it again this year. They look really good.
If he stays healthy, I don't know anybody that can beat him. We've seen the Celtics play this year. Who else did we like? We've seen people love Milwaukee. Although Porzingis playing for the Celtics, right?
He is, yeah.
He looks pretty good.
He does.
He looks pretty good for the Celtics.
It's going to be a fun season. It's going to be a fun season this year. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, buddy. Well, hey, man, Oklahoma's got to recover. Texas has to keep rolling. We're going to come back at you with a preview episode next week or this week, probably Wednesday night. Should have a special guest on to talk OSU football with us. So be looking forward to that. In the meantime, like, share, subscribe, do whatever it is you do, wherever it is you get your pods with this pod to make sure you're spreading the word about the Bevo Podcast. Kevin, have a great night. Boomer!
Hook 'em.